So Spotify have released something super cool and super new, but how useful is it? How useful is it to know or how many super fans you have? Well, let's check it out. So basically, if you go into your Spotify for Artists page and then click on Audience, you'll have this kind of new thing called Active Audience. Audience engagement, release engagement, relatively new, but active audience is what we want to check. And you have suddenly a lot of interesting stuff. And I'm going to, I think, explain what I think it means. And you can use this information for your own good or evil, however you want to. So basically, what it says here is I have 3,750 listeners in my active audience. I'm not the biggest artist of all time. I'm a very small artist, actually. Overall, I think let's just check the overview. I have 10,368 listeners. This is pretty low for me. In fact, it's probably the lowest of the year. I was at one stage almost at 20,000 listeners, but I haven't done much promo or enough promo, to be honest, recently. But anyway, let's get back to active audience. So out of those 10,000 listeners, I've got 3,750 listeners who are active. And I think that's really important to know because, just say you had 10,000 listeners, but only one was active, then there's something really weird is going on. But to say that 1/3 of your listeners are actively interested in you, like coming to listen to your music is kind of a nice thing. And what I mean by that is, as an artist, you have all of these new people coming in and maybe going out and listening a bit here, a bit there, passively. But what you want is a baseline of listeners who are always coming back. And I think this is a pretty good statistic to look at. Now, they've broken the active listeners to these 3 segments. So you've got super listeners, moderate listeners, and light listeners. Light listeners are active listeners who intentionally stream your music once or 2 times in the last 28 days. And that's the bulk here. So out of the 3,750, 2,837, so majority, 76% of them, just listen once or maybe twice. I'm not sure why they can't. I think twice is a big difference to once. but yeah, I mean, so yeah, I don't know exactly why it's once or twice, but that's how it is. And then you've got these moderate listeners. And I think that's that's the really important statistic. So moderate listeners, 22% are listeners who listened to your music many times in the last 28 days. So what does many times mean? I don't know. So many times probably means more than 2, because they're very specific here about the light listeners. They say, once or twice or a couple times, so maybe more than 3. So it's kind of a vague statistics, but say it was more than 10, then this is really useful, because to know that 839 people are going back and listening to my songs many, many times is quite heartening, because that's not a small number, or for me it's not. For an unknown artist, it's a pretty decent number for me. And then what's really even more heartening is you've got these super listeners who are dedicated active listeners. So once again, it's very vague about what that means, but I'm assuming it's going to be more than moderate listeners. So we're talking about people that are listening all the time, like literally every day. Now, I'm probably one of them. Actually, I don't even listen to my own music every day. So let's take 74 minus 1, that's 73. So still there are 73 people out there who are actively listening to your music, but it doesn't really say exactly how they're listening. So I would imagine if your song is on a playlist, say in a bar or a cafe, and that same playlist is played every day, then you're going to be on a playlist that's played every day. So it doesn't mean there's a person out there that is, listening to you every day. It just means that you're passively on a playlist. So it could mean something, but also it might not mean a lot. So just to let you know that, yeah, that is something. But however, what's really important is that there are 74 of them listening many, many, many times. And what you want to do really is grow that number. This is the first time I've seen these stats, so I don't know in the next month whether they say it's going up or down. Now, I have also heard that you really need to be aiming at about 5% super listeners. So it's going to be very hard to get more than 5% super listeners. Most artists, and if you are an artist with more than 5% super listeners, put a comment in, and tell us, how many super listeners you're getting. But between 3 and 5% is what you should be aiming for. So I'm kind of under here, and that's not a good thing. So so the good thing about these stats is it means like you can look at this and think you've got to work on something, right? So my idea is to bring that from 2% to 3%, so maybe from 74 to 84 or something like that. So that's something for me to aim for. And then what we have here is some really interesting statistics, and you can just see here that there's a bit of a downward spiral, and as I said, my actually monthly stats have been reducing over the last couple of months because I haven't released much music. So you can see the segment size, which is your active listeners. For me, that's gone down actually fairly substantially, almost by about 1,000. But I think when you have a new song out, you're more likely to have super listeners. So you can see here, my super listeners was 4% at the beginning of the month, and it's now 2%. So that means I've got to release music, or I've got to promote music, or I've just got to do something to get people interested, because people are losing interest in VXD music. So it's unfortunate. But anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about active audience. There is also something called audience engagement, which has been around for a while, and you can see the source of streams, and you can see sort of your streams segment, streams per listener, and saves and playlist ads. So that's been around for a while. So it's just really, you want to use this in conjunction with active audience, which is a new thing. And just lastly, there is this statistic here that says on average, 4 times on average, people who actively stream a song will play the artist's music 4 times more in the next 6 months. So you really need to get these super listeners and moderate listeners up, even though they're just saying active listeners. So all of these guys are active listeners. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. There will be a video soon talking about, let's just go quickly to the campaign here. It will be talking about my results in discovery mode. And you can see here on April the 11th, we will see how that goes. I've already submitted my songs for discovery mode, and there is another video which I'll be pointing to you right now, which is talking about discovery mode, and I'm very super excited about that. Okay, thank you. Until next time, bye.